welcome out to a brand new, very special episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. Your ears do not deceive you. This is not Stephen, this is Jimmy Jerome, but don't worry, you're going to get plenty of Stephen in this episode. Samantha Stark, who is the marketing manager for It's All Been Done Presents, recently arranged to work the table at the Origins Game Fair in Columbus, Ohio with Fifth Epoch Publishing, which is a game company. Vito Pandolfo, who is the managing principal at Fifth Epoch, invited her out, and she spent the weekend helping promote those games. As part of that, she and Stephen attended the game fair and talked to Vito about RPGing and Star Trek in general and his game company. So I think you're really going to enjoy this. Please check out fithepochpublishing.com, that's the number 5, and then epochpublishing.com for more information about the company. Now enjoy this very special live episode from Origins Game Fair, recorded last weekend. Hey, welcome. It's a special IABD Presents feature here. We are at the Origins Convention. What is the actual name? Origins?
It's the Origins Game Fair.
It's the Game Fair. There you go. I think it's on my name is spelled wrong on this badge, but on the badge it says Origins Game Fair. I'm Stephen. You've heard me on It's All Been Trekked before, possibly on Amanda's Picture Show Go here on the IABD Presents Network. But we're not here to talk about that entirely. We're here to talk about games. Obviously, we're at a game fair, and we've been hanging out at a booth all weekend. Samantha Stark here.
Hello.
Has been hanging out. It's obviously a gaming convention, which definitely a lot of not only the people on our network play. Hello, Keith and Marianne, among others, but Nick, on and on and on. But obviously a lot of our listeners and folks who listen to us. So we thought this would be an ideal place not only for us, but to hang out and get to know some people. And we've been hanging out with the booth with Fifth Epoch Publishing.
Yes.
That's the correct name?
Yes, we are here.
And Vito?
Vito, yeah. Vito Pandolfo is my name. And I'm the managing principal at Fifth Epoch. And we got the whole crew here, as you saw. You met everybody on the way in.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about just the give us your elevator pitch for what you guys do.
Listen, Fifth Epoch Publishing we're a micro publisher in the gaming business. We'll put out two tabletop role-playing games. We have another tabletop battle game coming out that's based on one of those properties. I have a miniatures war game that comes out. I can never seem to have enough games. We've been at this 10 years, actually.
Okay.
It takes 2 to 3 years to develop an entire game system. I wish I could do science games. I wish I could do sci-fi games. I want to do games, all kinds. So I've played Star Trek games, Star Wars games, the whole works. So it's just a matter of how long can I keep us in existence to catch up to all my ideas.
Yeah.
So we've been here. This is the 4th or 5th time we've been out here at Origins. We're glad to have you guys this weekend.
Sure.
We hope you get to
Thanks for having
time
us.
and kind of pop around a little bit. And that's the quick pitch on what we do.
Cool.
So,
I'm not as up on the gaming now. I can tell you I played in the game, and this will be the Star Trek angle. We're talking early '80s. We're talking. I get the thing in the mail, and you fill out. Here's what I was the captain, and you fill out here who your crew members are, and they give you here's what's going on.
Yeah.
You literally write out by hand what's going on, and you send it back. And I can't remember if I either stopped paying for it or never got it back. Either way, at the time it was great.
Was that like Starlog magazine?
Yeah, same era. I think that's how I got connected.
I can connect the dots for you.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I was this big in the 80s.
You're this big in the 80s. Yeah. She's got her hand up.
Yes.
So, all right. So what that was a mail-in role-playing game, and so what you did is you had a character and you were playing a role, and you would mail in your action. And for those of you who don't know, out there, younger listeners maybe what the heck are they talking about? So you would mail in your intentions, and other people were doing the same thing, and then someone at the receiving end of that would go through the trouble of having to totally collate all those results, and then they would mail back to you what happened. And then Stephen had to go, okay, well now what do I do? And then you make the next decision, right? All right, so that was a mail-in role-playing game. That was also tabletop role-playing games, because you had said, is 4 or 5 people sit around the table and they each are playing a type of character. You have a character sheet. Those of you who are more into online role-playing, you do that now because you'll change screens and you get to see what your character holds. So the older school, which never really went away is you have a character sheet and you have all your attributes, and then the game master says, here's your situation, are you guys screwed or not, right? So then the players figure out what they're going to do, but you're doing it live. And so it really one is an extension of the other, so I'm kind of glad you brought that up, because it all started with Starlog, right? So I had that too when I was an 11-year-old kid, you know, what do I get? That was the only place I knew where to go to get sci-fi stuff, so does that help? That helps?
Yes, very much, yes. Cool. So yeah, that's where I said, and for the It's All Been Trek listeners, will appreciate that my Yeoman I named after the girl I had a crush on in high school. So that's or junior high, whatever it was. But yeah, so you can all relate to that. She was my Yeoman Rand. But so what was the first game you guys put out?
Well, I want to go back and talk about the Star Trek thing
absolutely,
for a minute, because I have to tell you
I
that.
could go on and on for
and rather than like touting our games, because we can always go back to that, but I have to tell you, when I was 11, I played Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Yep.
Which is probably the first game that everybody gets introduced to, Dungeons and Dragons, right? But by the time I was 13, we had played the Star Trek role-playing game.
Okay.
And back then, the Star Trek role-playing game was you got to play the crew on one, like the Enterprise or one of the other heavy cruisers. Yeah, the original. Yep. Yeah, it was all set in that setting. But every player around the table got to play one of the major stations. So you had your captain, your science officer, your engineer, your navigator, your helmsman, just like when you were watching the series.
Yep.
And the object was that every player had like a panel, and the captain would give a command, and then the players would each work their station to execute on that command. Right? It was really cool. And then you could go on, you could go on be an away team and get beamed away. So I had to tell you that, because that was probably the third role-playing game that I've ever played, right? But that was in the early days. I'm not in that. We don't publish in that genre.
Right.
But there's a new Star Trek role-playing game here somewhere around. There's a bunch of stuff. Later on, I played Starfleet Battles, which is Starfleet Battles is a tabletop game that involves fleets. So you would have a Federation fleet against the Klingon fleet, or the Federation fleet against the Romulan fleet, or the Gorns, or the Zintis, or the Tholians, or everybody else in the universe.
Got them all. You're nailing them all. Yep.
We, that was a fleet combat. We had a few ships, and then they came out with a game called Federation Space, where you did this at the border level. So you were playing the Great War, where the Romulans and the Klingons were fighting the Federation and the Zintis and the Gorns. I mean, it was mayhem, right?
Yeah.
So all these games, Star Wars also has some interesting, but Star Trek has a legacy of gaming in this that I think even a lot of Star Trek fans may or may not even know.
Yeah,
but I had to tell you,
that
that was
awesome.
like really cool. Yeah, really cool stuff. So
That's very cool.
yeah.
So what got you involved in this field? Was it the love of the game, or
Listen, the entire field is made up of aficionados and hobbyists who decide they want to publish. I mean, that's the way this industry was born. That's the way it continues to evolve. So I'd been a role-playing gamer for a long time, played a lot of different kinds of games. When I was, in my early 30s, I had started really rewriting games a lot. And at one point in time, I said, I don't want to do this anymore. Let's make our own. So we wrote our first game, which is actually a Lord of the Rings-like fantasy role-playing game. Very, very, very low fantasy, not super high fantasy, very realistic. So that was my parlay into the industry. And then from there, we just kept recycling the revenue and building the next product line. Right? I have a previous background as an organizational developer, consultant, so I coach CEOs and presidents and senior level executives for a while. So I know a little bit about how to fix a company and how not to break it. You need to know that in the publishing industry, because otherwise we go out of business. This industry is also loaded with companies that show up, put out a game or two, and then disappear. So you've heard that story, right? So I know how to avoid that. So we've avoided that.
We had 10 years, and you guys.
But we have not gotten to the sci-fi game yet. Although, but we will. We're going to get there eventually, right? So that's our world. Yeah.
The one game I saw looked really cool, and I don't know if that's your newest game or not. Is the Cold War one?
Oh, the Cold War, yeah. That's now we're in the whole miniatures battle game world, right? And the miniatures battle game world has been made up of all these historians who they buy miniatures from all different sources, and they keep putting them together. And as they study the field and they love watching studying their subject, they put them together. Then they go find a rule set, and then they, like on an ad hoc basis, will just put it all together, show up at a con, bring a whole collection, set up a 6x 20-foot table, and play all weekend. And there have been some game rule sets out there, but the Box Battles Cold War, it's set in the Cold War, 1970s. and we pre-boxed everything for convenience for those people out there that say, hey, it's really cool, but I don't know if I can be a collector. So we have that as well.
Okay.
So that's kind of cool. But again, I want to get to the sci-fi stuff. I haven't been able to get to it.
Yeah, well,
it takes a long time.
That was my next thought was how do you guys as a company decide, okay, this is what we're doing next? Does somebody just come in with an idea and you guys sell each other on it and like, okay, tell me how this is going to work and
this is a common question I get.
Yeah.
I like all the ideas to be on the table, so I take all of them.
Sure.
And we've got like 14 part-time freelancers,
Okay.
10 to 14 depending on who's working. People all over the country, but everybody works remotely now, right? So
yeah.
So I just give me all the ideas, throw them on the table. Let's start developing them, and the one that starts getting further along is the one that gets the money.
Okay.
I start putting production money into it once I go, hey, Stephen, yours is moving. I think you got a workable system. I think the concept works. I think people would enjoy playing it, and that's what gets the investment, right? So,
Sure.
But at the front end, it's every man and woman for himself or herself.
Yeah, makes sense.
Just throw the ideas. So we are typically developing 3 or 4 concepts at once, and the one that gets further along is what gets the investment. Okay. So that's how that. I don't know how other publishers do it.
Right.
That's how we do it, right?
Yeah,
it's worked for us. So,
yeah. And is I guess part of the process is actually just playing the games.
Yeah, well,
right?
you have to play it and play.
Yeah,
but our mantra is, can we break it?
Right.
We like to, because Sam, as you know, right, because our games are realistic. Sam has had the experience of playing 2 of our games this weekend, right? So Sam,
learned 2 of them,
You've done sword and shield stuff, and you've done a little bit of magic and missile, and you've done gunfire.
I did a little bit of the gunfire, yeah.
And you've done gunfire, right? And you were a service lady, so
I was going to say, that you were able to use some of your military experience?
Oh, yeah, that tactical battle, tactical talk and stuff like that. So penetration rules, what blockades is in front of a person will come, and I was telling Vito today, that was one of the coolest parts, is that with a gun, if you have something in front of you, it's going to affect what that bullet does to you, if anything.
Right.
So, and it's built into the game. You can have a standard drywall, you can have concrete, you can have construction. So, and all of that will play a factor into what type of gun you use and what damage it's going to do to your opponent. So it's really cool. It's totally accurate.
So what happened was, because we're realistic.
Yeah, which I thought that was really cool.
The theme of our whole company is putting reality back into fantasy, right?
Yeah.
But here's where all you sci-fi fans out there will go nuts is, we try and break it. So if we start to be able to disprove something that we're seeing is like a set of game rules happening at the table but doesn't happen in the real world, we can't do it that way. It's not going to work like that. And we play it until we break it. And I think I think it's interesting in the Star Trek realm, because I've been, what kind of fan am I?
Right.
But when I go down the Star Trek tunnel, I always think that Star Trek's done a really good job at connecting a continuity of like, well, this doesn't exist yet, but if it did,
here are the rules.
Here's the rules of the. Here's how it would work, and I have to say that's my propensity, right? We
get in on the show when we've been watching the show. And Jimmy Jerome, we definitely get a lot in. We're the apologists, so we tend to explain why something's possible.
Apologists.
So we try and find a reason for why this happened, even though it shouldn't. If it doesn't make sense.
Jettison everything.
And Jimmy, he knows the entire all the series. I know the old series the best.
Yeah.
But so we're able to kind of explain it, and then sometimes you just can't. You just can't. It's broken. In that one spot, it might be broken.
But isn't that the cool? But see, where the sci-fi world is kind of cool about this, and that's kind of where our game systems are in play. But where the sci-fi is, if you can blur that line between reality and fantasy just enough am I reading about what happened, or am I reading about what could happen? Like when you start to get that confusing, that's awesome, because now we've created a tangible, credible thing,
right? A reality that you can accept and again play by those rules, which is perfect for game.
And then what happens is they make a communicator on the big screen in the late 60s, early 70s, and the next thing you know, 30 years later, we're actually carrying them around in our pockets.
Exactly.
That's a really cool thing, right? So that's what happens.
Yep. And heaven forbid you're in the hospital, it looks a lot like the sick bay on Star Trek back in the day.
Yeah, I get it. It's that line's real. I mean, I understand that.
Yeah.
But it's amazing when you look at a lot of sci-fi now. Technology is much closer to what they're doing on the screen. It's not as much of a stretch,
Yeah, like the Matrix. We're all convinced we're living in the Matrix now, right? With everything, we're all plugged in. And
well, look at touchscreens. I mean,
exactly.
Touchscreens when Star Trek: The Next Generation came out, right? At that time, there really weren't any touchscreens around.
Yeah.
And when you looked at those consoles, they were all touchscreen, right, with the smooth gloss.
Yep.
And we were there quickly, right?
Yeah.
Now we're into transparent panel touchscreens when you see, and we're not that far from that
Avengers,
either.
yeah.
And Avengers, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I just saw. I just went. Did you see The Passengers? Did you see the movie The Passengers?
No.
They do a lot of that with the suspended touchscreen. Cool stuff.
Yeah.
But I think
Google
that's,
Glasses.
you know, I think in another 10 years, if we're still doing, if someone out there is still producing Star Trek films and series, they're going to look like that.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
the new Star Trek series, right?
Yeah,
The new
exactly.
ones,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the,
Super cool. Chris Pine and
Chris Pine,
those guys,
yeah, absolutely. Those are really.
Yeah.
So
They're-
that's my thing. I
They
like.
combine the latest effects and all that stuff with the same kind of feeling you had for the old show and everything.
Credible credible projection of technological development.
Exactly.
There we go.
And I think that's that difference between whether, you know, we both love Star Trek and Star Wars. Jimmy Jerome, sorry Jimmy,
Wait.
he's not as big a Star Wars fan. He loves Star Trek and Star Wars, but again, it's that thing of that's just a different universe and that's a different reality.
Hey,
you know,
Star
kind of thing.
Wars,
So.
they act well. So I look at it this way, right? My angle, and I say this as a gamer. I think Sam, you might have heard me say this to somebody. Okay, a Porsche is not a Land Rover. All right, you can try to do in one what you would do in the other. It's not going to work out very well. Okay, and you can reverse that. All right, they have different vehicles. They serve different purposes. They deliver on different things. Well, the Star Wars and Star Trek comparison is a lot like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Star Wars performs the delivery of classical archetypes really, really well. We don't have that in the Star Trek universe.
You're
We
right.
don't have that.
You're right.
Star Trek deals with tangible, down-to-earth, grounded, day-to-day, real-world problems that people contend with,
Yeah.
problems of race, problems of ethnicity.
Yeah.
That's all been
Yeah.
told in
Yeah.
the Star Trek.
Absolutely.
It's not really told in the Star Wars
Right.
universe. Am
Yeah.
I right?
No, I think that's a great breakdown.
So,
Yeah.
so while I think a lot of people are actually comparing the two,
Yeah.
I think the idea is really, no, let's contrast the two.
Yeah.
They do different things.
Yeah.
You can't believe anything that's happening in Star Wars, and from my point of
Right.
view, from a
Right.
credibility
Right.
standpoint. But the archetypes are phenomenal,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's a great story. When you look at the first three movies,
Oh,
and you look at
Jimmy's gonna hate this guy.
you look at the stories and you're like, it's about one guy. The whole series
Yeah.
about them.
Yeah.
Right? It's about his lineage, right? That's
His rise and fall and everything,
It's
yeah.
a really cool concept, but it's completely and there are times I think when you want to emulate that creation. There are a lot of times when you want to emulate Star Wars. But it tells a very different type of struggle,
Absolutely.
I think, than Star
Yeah.
Trek, and I think that's from when I look at it as a designer and a fantasy maven and a total
Yeah.
geek. That's what my geek meter goes off that one.
That's a great breakdown because I love both and definitely for different reasons.
see that?
Yeah,
Okay,
very
so
much
cool.
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So, you know, in particular, Vito, how's your Metal Magic and Lore game? How does that compare to Dungeons and Dragons?
Right.
I go, it doesn't compare to Dungeons
Yeah.
and Dragons. If you want to tell a high fantasy story and you want heroes, you play Dungeons and Dragons. If you want to tell a story that's more like the film Rob Roy, if you've ever
Right.
seen that,
Right.
you play Metal Magic and Lore. Like,
Yeah.
hey, we were going to sell cows and now we're screwed. How did that happen? Well, that's our game,
Yeah,
right? So
right.
one tells a very mundane story, the other tells a very fantastic story, right? So
Yeah.
that's my
Something for everybody.
Star Trek, Star Wars.
Yeah, that's like I said, that's a terrific breakdown. Yeah.
So
I
if I
love
can
both.
ask a really quick
Sure.
question. If you were to get into, because you want to get into a sci-fi game, but you want it to be realistic.
Yeah, I do.
Do you see it as a game more like Metal Magic and Lore, or do you see it as a miniature like Battle Box?
No, it would be a tabletop role. We could do we've investigated both.
I figured.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've already looked at the tabletop game, the Battle Miniatures game, and we came up with this concept called, Battle 2100. And we wanted to look at what the battlefield would look like at 2100. And we think it's going to be a combination of futuristic tanks and battle suits. So we thought about that. But I think it's more interesting personally to look at the role-playing game world and go, what would our society be like and what would our characters be in that world? I always wanted like the idea of using like an aliens type idea where you're inside the Sulaco and you're with a bunch of colonial marines, or something like that. Like that's interesting to me. So I think weighing both, Sam, I think right now I'm leaning on the side of the role-playing game. I think that's really a much more interesting, investigative process. So
That's a good question.
that's where I want to go.
Do you have anything else?
I'd say favorite Star Trek Do you like the first? See, I'm a newbie to Star Trek.
Yeah.
Are you?
I'm total newbie.
Wait,
My
but
first time-
are you a retro viewer? Like, are you a newbie, but you look at the old ones, or are you just a newbie and you look at the new?
Newbie in general.
Just started watching the old ones.
The very first episode of Star Trek in its entirety I saw was on their show.
Yeah.
And that was maybe 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
The very first time I saw a whole episode.
You're really newbie.
My dad didn't like it. If my dad didn't like it, we didn't watch it.
We need a new term for you. You're embryonic.
Yes, I'm
You're not even newbie, you're
an embryonic
You're
Trekkie.
an embryonic Trekkie,
But I
okay.
really enjoyed it, and so I'm looking forward to getting into the next gen and stuff because I love Patrick Stewart, and so who doesn't? But
And part of that, I was thinking about this on the way here. Part of the cool thing about our show is, you and Keith, first time you've ever seen the old episodes. I saw them when I was 11, 12, 14, and then I probably haven't watched them in 20 years. So I can watch it with my current eyes and then also watch it with my 12-year-old eyes and remember, because I can remember when I first watched it, what I thought and what I think now. And sometimes there's a difference and sometimes there isn't. But and then Jimmy's kind of got the whole spectrum. He's been in it and stayed in it. So
I would say, like, what's your favorite Trek? Was it generation? Is that what they call it? What's your favorite Trek generation and character?
Well, oh my, this is so hard.
it's the Kirk. I guess it used to be Kirk versus Picard, but now it's expanded.
I can't even go there. I mean, James Kirk is such a great archetype, and he was William Shatner just did that character so well. Yeah. And I know that he gets poked at a lot too, but so did Adam West, respectfully. Adam West was phenomenal at doing what he did. It's just that some people didn't understand what he was doing, right? Yep. And I think Kirk did the same thing. I think but I have to say that as a genre, and I know I'm going to get slammed by even Trekkies out there on this one, but I will tell you, I think Deep Space Nine was the best series of all of them.
You just made Jimmy happy. That's his favorite one too.
I love Deep Space Nine. Yeah. I just love the complexities and the backstory and the conflicts that the characters dealt with. And they all have their purpose, but I just really love the Deep Space Nine.
That's what I was I'm familiar with it, but I never got to get into it. So I'm looking forward to getting up to it.
I have no opinion. Never
it's gonna be a while.
I liked the first movie. I haven't seen any of those. Any of the other ones? I haven't seen the other ones.
Yeah, I think the sophistication in the backstory arc of the universe that the foreground is set in, I think is the most developed and the most mature in that one. That's what I think.
Battery dying.
Can't knock the original Star Trek. You just gotta rock the original Star Trek. Oh, yeah. Nobody had ever seen anything like that before, and that one gets an A mark just for breaking new ground, Absolutely. Right? So you can't, how do you beat that?
So what's next? Do you know what's next, or we know you want to do a sci-fi, but that's down the road.
Yeah.
Is it kind of whatever you're like you said, whatever develops fastest is
this year I launched a lot of new game product this year, and so what's on the market now is we're just doing more supplements for the current game line. Okay. So I have some fantasy game supplements coming out.
That makes sense.
We put out a game called The Vampire's Codex, which is a modern vampire game. I have a spy game that's in development that those two games interface, which is really cool. It's going to be like a Born Identity meets John Wick type thing. So you can do like Dresden Files, Vampire Hunter. Yeah. It's going to be phenomenal. So that's already on deck. I've got some box battles, miniature stuff going on. I won't get to sci-fi for a bit yet. It disappoints me, but I just can't do it yet. But it's coming. It's coming. Awesome. No one does our games like us, so I promise you, when we get it, people are going to be like, "This is cool." So that's thanks for asking.
So when people want to connect and check out this stuff, because you should. What's the easiest way for them to connect?
Best way to do it is to just go to our website. It starts with the number 5. It's www.5epochpublishing.com. Our products are there. Our back information's on there, and you can write us from there.
Awesome. Yeah, it's very cool. A lot of cool stuff there. So check it out, and keep on trekking.
Keep on trekking, and don't forget to find us.
Keep on trekking. Star trekking across the universe. Come on, I remember it.
I don't know.
You know it.
No idea.
You know it.
Vaguely. It's ringing a bell.
You don't remember the songs they did? It was come on, we got to do this.
I don't remember them that well.
It's life, Chin, but not as we know it. It's life, Chin. Come on, you have to.
He's showing me up.
Your Trekkie's going to write you, and they're going to write to you. They're going to write to you. They're going to say, we know that song.
You're like, you do this show every week, and this guy knows more than you.
We come in peace. Shoot to kill. Shoot to kill. Shoot to kill. You ever heard that?
That's a great way to end it, though.
Awesome.
All right, so don't forget to find us at IABD Presents. Find all our wonderful shows and there, and connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at IABD Presents. I've been Samantha.
Stephen?
Vito Pandolfo.
Thanks, Vito.